This will be a common sight in Laverne this Labor Day weekend. 11 pots of peanuts boiling away in the open air under the watchful eye of Crenshaw County Shriners. They say it's the largest peanut boil in the world. Shriners started this annual event 10 years ago.
The first year, I think we sold between $200 and $300 worth of peanuts. They were all picked off and processed by hand.
The project has come a long way since then. Last year, over $10,000 was raised for a special charity.
Last year was the best year that we've had, and we're hoping to top that this time by a couple of $1,000.
This money goes to the Crippled Children's Transportation Fund for the Arkansas Temple in Montgomery.
The boiling began Thursday at 6 in the morning. All 45 Shriners take part in the cooking. Shriners are quick to tell you they have their own recipe for boiled peanuts.
We boil them at just a good heavy boil and skim them, like the old saying is, skimming syrup, making syrup. The more you skim them, the more flush comes off the top, and that cleans it.
Judging from the reaction, the Shriners have come up with a good recipe. Cal Calloway, WSFA TV News, Laverne.
The battle against drunk driving is picking up steam. The airwaves have been flooded with public service announcements asking people not to drink and drive.
Join in this crusade to eliminate the #1 killer facing teenagers today.
President Reagan has put the squeeze on states to enact legislation raising the drinking age to 21. If Alabama doesn't raise the drinking age by 1986, we will lose 5% of our federal highway funds. Up until now, lounges in our area did little in the fight against drunk driving. But one Montgomery restaurant has launched an alcohol awareness campaign called the Designated Driver Program. The 3D program has been instituted at all 34 Daryl's restaurants in the Southeast. Customers in parties of 3 or more can designate one person who will drive home and not drink.
And we give them a free mocktail, which are basically virgin drinks without alcohol in them, and then they're entitled to free coffee or iced tea during their stay. And also, upon their departure, we give them a $5 gift certificate, which is redeemable for food or beverages on their next visit.
Ritz says the program is a direct response to the nationwide enactment of more restrictive anti-drinking legislation. Lisa Walsh, WSFA TV News.
The hot sun, nice cool water, an inner tube or two, a few planks of wood, a pontoon, maybe a bicycle built for two, and you're ready for the 12th annual Alabama River Raft Race. 36 various crafts gathered in Selma today, vying for trophies, T-shirts, and titles, such as the largest family crew and the ugliest raft.
Looks like everybody here is having a good time. A lot of people on the beaches. We have a lot of boats in the water, and I believe everything's going just great.
The race began at noon with a blast. The crews steered their rafts down 7 long miles of winding water, aided by an occasional gust of wind, a steady current, and man-made power. You could paddle, stroke, swim, or just drift lazily, enjoying the scenery and the company of the crew or passers-by. 1 hour and 41 minutes into the race, this craft, skippered by Richard Dennis from Dallas County, came pedaling into Little Miami Park.
We had 2 of us paddling and 2 of us resting. We set our pace, you know, and when we got tired, we swap out with the other 2 guys and rest a while.
That's the main thing, like just get out and having fun. No big emphasis on gotta be first. Just get out, have fun while you're on the river.
Not far behind, the Senile Express from Tuscaloosa, skippered by Jerry Hughes in the non-Dallas County class, came ashore at 1 hour 59 minutes. Of course, the competition is what makes a great raft race, but what makes a great rafter?
Just a lot of time, a lot of work.
A lot of dedication.
Have a dependable attitude and be ready to go.
Dean Argo, WSFA TV News, Selma.
I feel very comfortable with it. I know it pretty good, so I shouldn't have any problem. It'd be a more ball control offense. We will pass. Everybody knows that, but be a more ball control offense.
we feel that that we're making the kind of progress that we need to be made. We're on schedule. This week is polish. We feel that we got everything in offensively and defensively that we set out to do, and the enthusiasm with our kids has been tremendous. So now it's just a matter of polish and hope that we can come up with a good game plan against Jackson State.
He's going to go in the end zone, and back to the end zone is Denny Brown. He's got the touchdown. So I wasn't right. Jimmy Johnson and his team were. Eddie Brown with his first touchdown catch of the year. And that ball was right on the money, and Kozar, taking dead aim on the Heisman Trophy balloting, brought his team back, and for the 5th consecutive game, Miami has come from behind in the 4th quarter to go ahead, and they won them all until now.
You know, Jim, when we're talking, I said he's got 2 shots. You throw it.
Almost everyone who testified agreed as to how everything got started last Saturday night. Walter Thomas said it began when Walter Trotter approached him near a local nightclub. He says Trotter said he was going to kill him. Thomas says he took the threat seriously enough to stop a passing police squad car. Trotter had ducked into the nightclub when the car approached. When he came back out, the officers were waiting to question him. Officer Thomas Coker says as Trotter walked toward their car, he told him to stop. He says Trotter raised his hands in the air and replied, "I won't shoot you if you don't shoot me." Then Coker says Trotter suddenly reached toward his waist and Coker fired. The blast from his shotgun hit Trotter in the side of the head. But another witness testified that Trotter froze when he heard the command to halt. Robert Williams says Trotter never raised his hands at all, never moved, but was shot and killed anyway. Officer Coker says he shot because he feared for his own life. His partner said he wasn't so afraid that he felt the need to fire, but there was an interesting twist. Walter Thomas, the man allegedly first threatened by Trotter that night, says at the very moment that shot was fired, he had stepped into a nearby building and had his own shotgun in his hand because he thought Trotter was going to kill him. What the unarmed man was really going to do, no one knew except Walter Trotter. This case is still expected to go to the grand jury. The hearing was, as participants put it, more than anything for the public's sake. They say it was a chance to get all the evidence out in the open, to let anyone who wanted to present testimony come forward. In short, to clear the air and try to put an end to the speculation and arguing over the death of Walter Trotter. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
Governor Wallace rested at the executive mansion today after suffering what his doctor describes as a minor reaction to medication for blood pressure control. This afternoon, security officers at the governor's mansion said Wallace was feeling much better and that he was eating his lunch. After spending about an hour with Wallace last night, Dr. William Smith diagnosed Wallace's problem as probably heart palpitations, and he said there is no cause for alarm. Dr. Smith says Wallace's heartbeat became mild in the first 15 minutes of his visit, and they spent the rest of the time just chatting. Last night isn't the first time the governor's been sick during his term in office. In fact, Wallace's fourth term began with his spending 25 days in the hospital and being hospitalized a total of 3 times last year. Wallace aides are downplaying the seriousness of last night's heart palpitations, which they say are less serious than his past health problems. Dr. Smith says the governor's heart rate was equivalent to that of a man climbing a long flight of stairs, and that his reaction to the blood pressure medicine was a common one, and there was no need for Wallace to be hospitalized. But on the other hand, when the governor returns from a Southern Governors Conference in Texas next week, he is expected to undergo a complete examination. Dean Argo, WSFA TV News.
At the firing range in Independence, no cartridges are allowed. This Labor Day weekend gun shoot is strictly for black powder enthusiasts who shoot with muzzle loaders. Muzzle loading means loading from the front end of the gun. After gunpowder, or black powder as it's called, is placed in the barrel, a bullet is pushed in with a short starter and then ramrodded down. Muzzle loaders can use a percussion cap to ignite their black powder or shoot with a flintlock. Once the flint hits the steel, it ignites the black powder and forces the ball out the muzzle. Muzzle loaders were used by mountain men and trappers during the 1830s and 40s. The 80 men and women in the Chalkville Muzzleloaders Association are from central Alabama. Several weekends a year, each tries to relive that mountain era by dressing up in trapple regalia and shooting with a flintlock. The club owns 110 acres in Independence and is in the process of building a village near the Independence firing range. Retired civil service employee Bud Goff is the first to build his home on the range.
The way society's getting all mixed up today that me, like the rest of them here, like to go back to what the good old times. And it's a fine sport, and it's growing here in Alabama. And
black powder hunting is growing in our state. It won't be long before these 20th century Davy Crockett's will move from the firing range to the forest. This year, state wildlife officials estimate 40,000 hunters will go out black powder loaded for white-tailed deer. Lisa Walsh, WSFA TV News, Independence.
This is the first time Dothan's First Assembly Church has put on a program like this, and judging from the response, it won't be the last. Four months of work went into this program. Church leaders say it was a chance to say thank you to the workforce of the Wiregrass, not only the military and law enforcement officers, but all who wear uniforms.
We feel like that so many of them do work that it's really a thankless job. Many of them lay their life on the line daily. They're on 24-hour call. And so what we've done today is just take one of our service times and really say thank you to all the people who work in uniform.
The program had a patriotic ring to it.
Call it what you will, but this is my flag, the red, white, and blue.
A number of elected officials were on hand, including Alabama's 2nd District Congressman. Representative Bill Dickinson says those who serve humanity in uniform are performing the greatest work in life.
You're giving of yourself, unselfishly I might say, to help your humanity, and I think that is the highest calling.
Because of the large turnout, the program next year more than likely will be moved to the Dothan Civic Center. Cal Calloway, WSFA TV News, Dothan.
In September, the giant gaseous planet Jupiter is easily seen in the evening skies.
It is the brightest star-like object in our southern sky and is in Sagittarius, the Archer, just above the lid of the tilted teapot shape of the constellation. Jupiter has at least 16 known moons, but the big four are planet-sized Io, Europa, Callisto, and Ganymede, and can all be seen with binoculars on a clear night. Of the four, Io is perhaps the most bizarre. It is reddish-colored and is the only object in our solar system other than the Earth that is known to be volcanically active. But Io's volcanoes spout sulfur. Jupiter itself is famous for its Great Red Spot, a huge high-pressure weather system in the southern hemisphere. The spot is 25,000 miles long and 8,000 miles wide, large enough to hold 3 Earths. Starting September 1st and continuing through November 25th, the planetarium is featuring the special program, a comet called Halley, to herald the return of this most famous of all comets, which is due back for a visit in late 1985 and early 1986. This fascinating show will be presented at 3:30 on Saturdays and Sundays. For additional information, please call or come by the planetarium in Oak Park. I'm Tom Britton, hoping you will enjoy seeing September skies.
First quarter of the game with no score, that's Miami. In the blue uniforms, Dan Marino at quarterback. He'll find Mark Duper on a 26-yard touchdown. It was 7-0, the Dolphins on top. To the second quarter, Skins trailing 7-0. John Riggins, 1-yard TD run over the top. Game was tied 7-7. But in the second quarter, with Miami trailing 10-7, again it's Dan Marino, his favorite receiver, Mark Duper, who bounces off of Darrell Green. He will dance down the left sideline. It was 14-10, Miami Dolphins on top at the halftime. After Joe Theismann threw an interception, Dan Marino for his 5th touchdown of the day to Jim Jensen. Jensen's 2nd touchdown of the afternoon as Miami rolls over Washington 35-17. I'm George Michael for NBC News.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Come on, Artie. Come on now. Start it again. Never win it.
Come! He's coming! He's coming! Get him down! Oh, come on up! Come on up!
You're ready to be aggressive. Be aggressive, baby. Nobody.
About 10 o'clock this morning, the cars started lining up on Mount Meigs Road in Montgomery, filled with hungry people in search of barbecue. For the past 36 years, members of the Greek Orthodox Church here have labored hard on Labor Day to give backyard chefs the day off. This year, the church dished up 7,000 plates, heaped with a total of 1,000 chickens and 5,000 pounds of pork. Other Montgomeryans made their own fixins and picnicked in Lagoon Park. Those who didn't picnic golfed, including Victor Zimmer, who says Labor Day is one of his favorites.
It's one of the best holidays of the year.
And why is that?
Yeah, because you get to play golf.
Although most people like Labor Day because it's one of the few Mondays a year they don't have to work, these bikers have a different reason for liking Labor Day.
I don't like going to school, that's why I like Labor Day.
Lisa Walsh, WSFA TV News.
Closed.
Red Cross tries to maintain a 4-day supply of blood. The A-negative 4-day supply would be 34 units. Presently, we only have 3 units on hand, so you can see that we're critically low in those areas. We're also extremely low in types O and B, both positive and negative. We do need all blood types. We are low in every blood type, but especially O's, B's, and A negative. Well, this summer we've had extremely low blood collections due to the heat, more deferrals and all. A lot of people put off elective surgeries until summer, and our blood needs go higher in summer. Yes, we do need all blood types. Most help. I want you to squeeze and let go several times. So we do need all blood types. Most healthy adults between the ages of 17 and 65 can donate, and we strongly urge anyone who can donate to come out and support their community, to meet their community needs.
You know, after we got him up the other one, you know, he had went on down. Wire.
Okay, just a second. Just a
Anyway,
well, there's no question about it. We're going to eventually have to replace the old machines. You can't find parts for them. We have all kind of problems each and every election with them breaking down, malfunction. So we're going to have to purchase some machines. It's just a matter of what type of machines we will purchase from Montgomery County.
Vance, Alabama is a small coal mining logging community. Inside the city limits, you can find 3 small grocery stores like Thelma's, a town hall, a civic center, a post office, and a bank. Vance's population 300, and that includes a mayor and 5 council people. In recent days, the town has fallen on hard times. All 6 of the city's employees have been laid off, and a bank account that once boasted $92,000 now only holds $285.
The clerk had been telling us for some time that you know, the money was running low. But even that, the council kept voting to spend more money for this, that, or the other.
One project the town financed, a new police and fire department headquarters, price tag $138,000 or $460 per resident. The city couldn't bear the cost. Vance was broke. Mayor Kellum and Mayor-elect Bob Sauls, along with the council, gave up their salaries, which totaled $2,700 a month, and they took over many of the chores performed by city workers. Kellum even sprays the town for mosquitoes, while Sauls mows the grass around the Civic Center. But the town council has a philosophy about spending money, and just because funds were running low, they weren't about to change now.
We try to pay cash for what we get, and there's some things we do without if we don't have the money to get them.
We built a building, we bought a police car and things that the town really needed, and it took a lot more money than we had planned, so we used our money. That's the bad part. The good part is it's all paid for. We don't owe anybody.
The spending policy appealed to Governor Wallace. When he heard about Vance's financial problems, he sent a $5,000 check to help out. And thanks to the governor, the town council plans to buy a brand new lawnmower. Mayor Kellum says Vance will survive the crisis. The $1,791 in monthly beer tax money will help. And in February, Alabama Power will pay Vance $40,000 in license fees and rent on land the company uses for a pumping station.
Right now, it's a lot better than it was 12 years ago when the town became incorporated. We've got like about $500,000 worth of assets to show for their work, and I think we've got a good future.
The mayor and the town council got together last night and they paid all of Vance's bills, $5,300 worth. Mayor Kellum says the town doesn't have a whole lot of extra spending cash, but they don't owe anybody either. Dean Argo, WSFA TV News, Vance.
Unlike some hospitals where patients are admitted and placed in a regular room or sent to a separate facility, St. Margaret's has opened a special unit tucked away within the hospital itself.
When an individual comes into our unit, there'll be a 2 to 7 day assessment period and detoxification if necessary. During that period of time, the team of the medical director, the counselors and therapists, the family members, if the family members would be coming in with the individual, would put together an approach for that specific individual that is individualized for those specific problems.
The next part of the 21 to 28 day program focuses on rehabilitation. But as individual as each patient's treatment plan is, it's motivation within the group of patients who live and work together on their problems that's counted on to keep everyone on track. And everywhere you'll find reminders of the dangers of alcohol and/or drug abuse. The last phase of the program builds a support network for the patient within his or her family, at work, and in the community. Because, as Unit Director O'Brien says, there's no cure for substance abusers. Their diseases can only be arrested. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News.
You know, we have heard a lot about him since we played him last year and before the game we played. But You know, he's a real good quarterback, Heisman Trophy candidate, and we just go have to contain him, keep him in the pocket.
Younger people are really learning and picking things up. So, you know, you can't really tell until we get, you know, against a quarterback like Flutie, and he's really going to test the secondary the first game.
Yeah, they'll know after that game.
Yes, sir, they will.
The Seattle Seahawks, behind quarterback Dave Craig, got it going in the first quarter. Craig drops back, and he'll find Mike Tice for 6 yards in the score. Seattle led 7-0. But the big day for the Seahawks was clouded in the second quarter when All-Pro running back Kurt Warner, while making a cut, twisted his knee. He pulled up and then went down. Warner suffered possible ligament damage in his knee, and he could be out for a while. That will hurt Seattle. Later in the second quarter, Steve Cox punts the ball away for Cleveland. On the receiving end is Kenny Easley. Watch the former UCLA star go. First making a cut in, and he's got some running room. Easley cuts back again. He keeps running and spinning all the way down to the Cleveland 9-yard line. That led to another score. Seattle led 20-0 at halftime. Here in the third quarter, up 26-0. Craig connects once more, here with Darrell Turner for his third touchdown pass of the day. Seattle goes on to beat Cleveland 33-0. This is Scott Clark reporting for NBC News.
Election officials say it's a slow day at the polls all around the state. In Montgomery County, the chief clerk of probate court, Bob Smith, says there are two possible reasons for today's light voter turnout.
Well, perhaps the rain, and maybe there's just not that much interest in these races.
Voters in Montgomery County that care about the race and not about the weather had the option of voting with the old voting machines or with new electronic ones. Smith says he was afraid voters would shy away from the new machines, but today he was pleasantly surprised.
We find that more voters are wanting to vote in the electronic machines than in the mechanicals in most of the precincts, and they love it.
And the voters?
Oh, I think it's great. Fast, quick. Just push the button, the red button.
Many voters in Montgomery County didn't try out the new machines today, but the Secretary of State's office says the real workout will come during the presidential elections on November 6th. They say they're expecting up to 200,000 new voters to register by the end of October. Terry Stanton, WSFA TV News.
That's what the fire's on. Hey, how you doing? You got your pad, you want to get through too? No, I don't talk to them first. Right now it seems like the fire started around the back eye of the stove on the left-hand side.
When the Wallace administration took office 2 years ago, 2,000 state inmates remained in county jails. That caused county sheriffs serious problems. In Morgan County, the overflow of prisoners were housed in an abandoned car dealership. What happened to the prison overcrowding problem?
We don't have overcrowding in Alabama at all. We're one of the very few states in the nation that doesn't have overcrowding. Overcrowding has been solved once and for all in this state through the legislation called the Supervised Intensive Restitution Program, coupled with our opening of the Limestone facility 1 December, and then, of course, our Union Springs facility. We really had some happy sheriffs for the first time in this state. For many, many years, the sheriffs in the state were plagued with litigation costs, high medical costs to the county, the taxpayers, and now there's no backlog whatsoever.
Inmates on the SIR program are allowed to live with their families 3 years prior to their release date under the supervision of the Corrections Department. They live under a 10 p.m. till 6 a.m. curfew unless they work at night. The programs require inmates to pay for their restitution to victims. Currently, 900 inmates are on the program.
Commissioner Smith says the only thing that would cause a recurrence of the overcrowding situation in the state's prison would be an end to the SIR program. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News reporting.
Oh, you were so sweet to bring my lunch.
said fine, cooperate with
white gentleman.
7.5 years that I have been mayor, that we have had 20 times when police officers have had to fire their weapons and shoot someone. 3 of those white, 17 black, 6 of which have been fatal.
For may I just say,
Motion to suspend the rules, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand.
It's not just, it does not just affect Black Americans, but it does. Trait. Most people know nowadays whether or not they have sickle cell disease, but it's the trait carriers that's really the target group. Having the trait doesn't make you sick, and therefore the only way to know if you have the trait and therefore the possibility of producing a child with the disease is to get the test.
The difference in our assignment and the others probably is that we must have you have your minutes before you of the task force meeting in the governor's office.
Difficult subject. Regarding that reform effort, it seems that the presumption is that
One particular thing I'd like to keep in mind as we talk about performance criteria and the way we pay people. I'd like for us to keep in mind that we must find a better way to better pay our teachers, whatever that is.
To write a letter in their own handwriting at all, that there has been any kind of mismanagement or misinformation given. The responsibility of informing as this is ironic to us, I think, that at this time such a crisis would exist at a time when Alabama has just received over $350 million cash money from the lease of oil lands down in the Gulf area.
Well, I got a chance to meet Alonzo Babers upstairs, and he made a lot of people very proud.
I think everybody had a little sense of national pride the night that Alonzo won that, particularly people in Montgomery. Did you not have that same?
Absolutely. I wanted to see the gold medal this
Well,
afternoon.
I know. We're going to explain that. We'll get Alonzo, too. Alonzo Babers ran track at Carver High School. He went on to win the Olympic gold medal in the 400 meters, of course, in Los Angeles. He has returned to Montgomery to see his family and joins us live tonight in the newsroom. All right, Alonzo, where is the gold medal? You told me it was in Colorado Springs. What's it doing there?
That's right. When I left Colorado Springs, I had it put in a bank vault and locked up because I was going to travel to Washington, D.C. and then to Europe, and I didn't want to take it with me.
All right, what have you been doing now since you won the gold medal? Have you been running over there or what?
Yeah, first I went to Washington, D.C. and New York for part of the Sutherland tour they had, and then I went over to Europe to run in a couple international track meets.
Well, Alonzo, I don't like to show you finishing second, especially after winning the gold medal. But we're going to take a look at the Olympic trials. You did finish second in that race. Describe your feelings as you came around that final turn in the Olympic race when you did win as compared to this race here as you finished second in.
Well, coming out of the turn in the Olympic Games, I did sort of think about the trials and Antonio McKay coming back and catching me about 2 or 3 yards from the tape. So I just wanted to go out and make sure that the same thing didn't happen again. And I was fortunate enough to have enough left so I could bring it on in, and I did.
One final question. Has the Olympic gold medal changed Alonzo Babers in any way?
I don't think so. It's brought a lot of attention, but it's attention that I don't mind having for right now. And I think the only difference between me then and me now is I have 2 gold medals.
Well, I know the city, of course, will be honoring you at a reception Thursday night at the Montgomery Civic Center. That'll be a 5 o'clock reception. We encourage all Montgomeryans to go out and show support for Alonzo, and glad that you're with us.
Thanks a lot. It's nice to be back.
Glad to have you home. Alonzo Babers, Olympic gold medalist, and of course he did win the gold in the relay as well as the 400 meters.
And we're happy to do it.
Thank you very much. We most certainly appreciate this contribution from Stora Cable Television, a program specifically for students majoring in our communications program. And
well,
on behalf of Stora and the spirit in which it's given, and we hope that through students.
Councilman Dixon and I jointly made this recommendation some time ago, and we followed through on it. In fact, we kept.
Alabama has already reaped millions of dollars from offshore drilling in Alabama's 3-mile limit, but oil companies are also drilling in a second 3-mile federal zone from which Governor Wallace feels Washington should share the benefits with Alabama.
The drilling 3 miles beyond the 3 miles, when you get beyond the 3 miles, then we don't talk about that, but the 3 miles, it impacts in angle drilling wells located within the bottoms of Alabama waters.
Similar disputes over sharing the bonuses of the second 3-mile limit have developed in other Gulf and Pacific Coast states. In Louisiana and Texas, the federal courts have ruled the states should get at least 50% of the money. Recently, Governor Wallace turned down an offer from Washington for just more than 16%.
Well, we're going out to meet and take a solid front on what we're going to do, whether we're going to settle or not, or whether we're going to go along with appealing, defending the court decision of the lower courts. We think the decision of the lower courts ought to hold up. It ought to be 50-50.
The decision about how to fight Washington could have immediate results. While the debate continues, an estimated $240 to $280 million has accumulated from oil companies doing business in Alabama's second 3-mile limit, and a victory would mean a $100+ million windfall to the state. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
So far, it's been very good. We find that more voters are wanting to vote in the electronic machines than in the mechanicals in most of the precincts, and they love it.
Looking forward to November. We're going to need you again, ready for the hard work for that race. I'd also like to commend Al Butler and his supporters for the hard race they fought and tell you that I hope that you feel you can support me in November because I'll need your votes too.
Like you just didn't know they're here.
Yeah. Actually, I caught the whole highway on Wayne 11. That's good.
They said they saw it
shut down. Yep. It's up there.
No, shut down.
I did it. I actually did it. Yeah. Just greatest thing I ever felt before.
Alonzo Babers describing his feelings after winning the first of 2 gold medals during the Summer Olympic Games in Los Angeles. The former Carver High School runner, who recently completed a tour of Europe, agrees with those who feel the performance of the U.S. team in Los Angeles was an inspiration to all Americans.
I would sit between races and watch TV, watch the rest of the events, the rowing and the fencing stuff I'd never even watched before sometimes. And just watching some of these things, you know, I could feel emotions swell up in me. And you know, it was great. I could feel everything.
Babers trained for years to fulfill the Olympic dream. Was it worth it?
There's a lot of times I was training and I thought, you know, is this really going to be worthwhile, you know, because it's so few people that get to the Olympic Games, even make the team, especially win a gold medal. And now that I've done it, it makes everything, even the small things, worthwhile.
Have outstanding $30 million, which we'll get into in a minute, and then followed by Mr. Bob Reed from the gas company. Anticipates nowadays this calculation made. No potential rate increase.
There's a lot of underdogs out there, and you take the average man and woman that make $15,000 to $25,000 a year. They have to pay 30% of their money for taxes, and these multimillionaires and giant corporations, they don't have to pay any taxes, and that's not fair. And we're going to do something about it when we go to Washington.
As Alabama State gears up for fall quarter, internal changes are taking place that, according to the university's president, will keep ASU on a straight course. Dr. Leon Howard says for too long ASU has suffered from a shaded image and declining enrollment. And when the university implements what he calls new strategies, Alabama State will be seen in a new light.
We are using several innovative, new, creative techniques. And one, of course, I mentioned to our faculty yesterday, we are having to remain competitive by offering more scholarships.
Dr. Howard says a complete school reorganization plan will be unveiled October 1st, but some of the shuffling has already begun. During a staff meeting yesterday, 6 university administrators were relieved of their duties but not fired. Dr. Howard says the reorganization was necessary to remove ASU from a state of academic emergency. And he says how well students perform in school and in life after school depends on the university's educational effectiveness.
We're starting with classroom instruction. We're starting with orientation. We're starting with constantly counseling sessions. So we think all of these ingredients put together will have tremendous impact.
The president says his expectations are simple.
My expectations of the faculty and the students in all of our programs is to make sure that we are giving students a quality education.
Dr. Howard says Alabama State is making progress, and in the months to come, the university will examine its leadership, its faculty, and its students. And this, he says, will ensure that Alabama State gets back on its course towards educational excellence. Dean Argo, WSFA TV News.
All over the country, colleges and universities are getting ready for the yearly flood, the fall arrival of millions of new high school graduates. But this year, the flood may be more like a trickle. Educators say the number of students coming out of high schools has been declining over the past few years, and now it may have hit bottom.
All the demographic data shows that there are fewer students.
What all this means to higher education is just what you might expect. The competition in recruiting students is getting tougher. Don Gibson heads up the Student Affairs Department at Troy State University.
I think those institutions that make a strong effort to identify the programs that are needed in order to provide the educational programs the people in this area want, then they will not have any substantial problems in enrollment.
Educators generally agree that the student shortage is having less of an impact in the South than it is elsewhere, simply because more families are moving this way. And even here, all schools are not created equal. For example, schools that have a lot of adult classes are generally faring better than schools that rely heavily on typical college-age students. But even at small private schools where the student shortage has not been much of a problem, recruiting won't let up.
Everybody has realized that students aren't necessarily going to come to them. You've got to go out and let folks know that you exist.
The situation is expected to level off over the next few years, with enrollments going neither up nor down. The next big boom isn't expected until 1990. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
Seven are charged in connection with the theft of 57,000 pounds of prime-grade beef products from this West Montgomery beef processing plant. Authorities say the meat was taken over a 16-month period, beginning in April 1983. Montgomery Police spokesman Major John Wilson says the meat was sold to local citizens, and he says the thefts were uncovered by a private security firm.
A couple of weeks ago, we were advised by National Security that they were conducting an in-house investigation into the theft of beef from Montgomery Food Processing. They determined that the meat was being loaded there and distributed by a fence on the outside. And that's when we were called in and assisted them in making the arrest.
Officials say there are several other suspects in this case, and more arrests are possible. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News reporting.
Have outstanding $30 million, which we'll get into in a minute, and then followed by Mr. Bob Reed from the gas company.
So it's not a matter of getting rid of people per se, because there are procedures for doing that. But we have taken a close look at all of the talent, and we have some talented people at this university, and we are just realigning some of the positions with the talent that we have here. So that's incomplete as of this stage, but we simply made some reassignments.
This is familiar ground for John Beasley. He owns pharmacies in Dothan and his hometown of Columbia. But soon his face will become familiar at another location, the state capitol in Montgomery. Tuesday's special election was called by Governor Wallace after the death of Representative George Grimsley in April. Two Democrats ran for the seat, Beasley and the son of the late lawmaker, George Grimsley Jr. Both candidates won their home counties. Beasley, however, was able to win his native Houston County by a 2-to-1 margin. That was enough to give him the win by about 300 votes. John Beasley has been an independent businessman for 29 years. He says that experience as a businessman is something the Alabama legislature needs.
We do need more business people in, small business people who every day are faced with the decisions to make of trying to keep a business going in trying times and times where economic conditions hadn't been so good.
Beasley has seen the legislature in action before, helping push a generic drug bill into law. He says the State Pharmaceutical Association encouraged him to run.
We just needed some more voices in Montgomery that could work with the legislature and funding the Medicaid, particularly the prescription drug program.
Cal Calloway, WSFA TV News, Dothan.
We're going to need a large mounting array or mounting platform to put the solar cells on to generate this additional amount of electricity that's going to be required. And similarly, if we can make them even big enough, then we can in turn use that power source here on Earth. Certainly with larger arrays than this one, but this is order of magnitude larger than anything that we have done before.
The sales lawsuit was supposed to go to trial in 5 days. Instead, attorneys for the young man and attorneys for the city settled the case for $25,000. Bobby Joe Sales was shot in the back while running on Hall Street. At the time of the shooting, the police said Officer Connor mistook Sales for an escaped prisoner and that Sales didn't follow orders to halt. Sales was unarmed. The lawsuit accused Connor of following an unwritten police policy of using excessive force against black people who don't follow police orders, a claim that will have to be settled elsewhere now.
We still maintain it was just an unfortunate incident, and that's one of the reasons that the city feels some obligation to try and do what's right in the case. There have been occasionally people that were shot accidentally, that mistaken identities, etc.
Attorneys for Sales declined to speak on camera. Susan Silvernail, WSFA TV News.
What we've accomplished is that this campaign has said to the board of directors of the Y and the staff of the Y that we believe in you. We got a lot of faith in you. We got a lot of pride in you. And we're expecting you to continue to establish the same tone for the YMCA here in Montgomery that you started 35 years ago.
Yeah, see, advantage.